So the first memory that I ever have from like childhood or whatever, I guess, is me running into a screen door. My second memory, I don't remember how far after it happened, was this night where I was probably driving to like a diner or something in my mom's minivan. I was in the back seat, as you do when you're, a youngin', and I remember looking out at the highway, like we were going over one of those overpasses, and I know all the roads are so different everywhere in the world, but we were going over one of those overpasses where you can kind of see the whole highway out for miles. And I remember like, it was kind of dusk where all the headlights were starting to come on, and I just have such a vivid memory of looking like out across all the headlights and like realizing like there's an individual person going home to their own story in each and every one of those cars. Like it was like this moment of realization of like one of these people is going home to feed their kids, and one of them is going home to get in a fight, and one of them's going home to see their dog who they haven't seen. Like there's so many stories playing out across this highway at rush hour. And I remember like in that moment, I don't know if I felt almost a hint of sadness, but also a hint of wonder and like kind of like amazement, like it felt the same way that I felt when I see like a landmark or when I see like a beautiful mountain. Like it was so strange. And I think, it's weird because when it comes to like urban infrastructure, people don't usually post or talk about how much they love, giant highway overpasses, but everybody does love the image of a bunch of car headlights on the road. And I feel like there is something sort of profound about it because it's almost proof of existence. You know what I mean? It's one of those times where you can really look around and go like, wow, there's so many lives playing out right in front of me. Later on, I found out that emotion that I felt is called sonder, right? And I know sonder is just defined as, the realization that each person in the world is living their own individual life. So I don't know if that exactly comes with every emotion that I felt, because I feel like it was almost made up of a bunch of emotions, but maybe that's all sonder is. It's just that realization. And I always, like, that's one of, if not like my core memory, like that feels like the first thing that like started my life outside of walking into that screen door when I was 3. I think I said something along the lines of "I'm Mr. Silly" as I plunged my head into a screen door and broke it. But outside of that, it was that feeling. And like for the life of me, I've always kind of searched why did that feel like, why was that such a pivotal moment? Why was that such a big thing? I think part of me thinks maybe it was such a big thing just because it was the first time I ever felt like a complex emotion. I think everything's so easy when you're a kid. You're never facing a moral dilemma, it's like Batman's on TV, I'm happy. I don't get Cheerios, I'm sad, Like it's a pretty simple existence. At least I was blessed and fortunate enough to have one. And I think maybe it was the first time I felt an emotion that wasn't simplified into a word that was on a chart in my pre-K classroom. I think maybe that's why it felt so vivid. But I do think, what we do on the show, of course, is overthink things. So I do think there's sort of a link to it of the fact that like there's something hugely existential about the feeling of sonder that I don't think is really addressed. I thought of this topic because I was at the diner with my friend the other day, and she, her phone background was the definition of sonder. And I thought that was so interesting. First of all, fuck her, because she gatekept it. I was like, oh, I like your background. She went, sonder, do you know what that means? Like, she thought I was just, dick riding for no reason. But I did actually just like her background because I'm a big fan of the word sonder ever since I found out what it meant. She won't be watching this, but it just helped me to get that off. But jokes aside, like I think there is a link between that and a sort of existentialism, right? Because the way I look at it, and I'm not talking about existentialism, I know sometimes I I should make this distinction because I know sometimes like on this show I'll talk about something a little more philosophical from like a direct perspective, you know? And I don't, when I say existentialism, I very much mean in the branch of just like a vague existential feeling. To me, existentialism sort of comes with like a realization of scale, right? Like it's that idea of like humans are so small, we're all so small, and because of that we are inconsequential, we're meaningless in the grand scope of things, right? There's of course other ideas in there of like individual lives are meaningless, but speaking about existentialism in a very broad manner, it's sort of, to me, this realization of scale. And I feel like sonder is almost like a type of existentialism on a smaller scale. Does that make sense? Like, is that weird that that can exist? Like, it's almost like looking out. I think too the reason this is such a core memory for me is because like maybe this is just a deep moral failing on my part, but as a kid I didn't realize like there was anybody but me and like the 5 guys I knew at school, you know what I mean? Like I was like, oh, like I never thought about the world existing even. I was like, oh, there's me, there's my 3 friends at school, there's my mom and my dad to get me food, and Batman's on TV. Like I was like, that's where it starts, that's where it ends, right? So I think like having sort of to a 5 or 6 year old or 7, I don't remember how old I was, it was below 8, I can say that with some certainty. To me, like that was almost an existential realization of like, one, there's so much out there, and all these things are existing the exact same way. Like we're all on this same highway, we're all going back to sort of the same area, and like I watch Batman. Does that make sense? I hope that makes some sense. I wonder if this is a common thing. Like, I'd love to know, when was the first time you guys experienced sonder? Because, like, I know my one friend, when it was her phone background, she was like, I just have experienced it recently. And I was like, really? Like, I thought that was so interesting. Because to me, it was such a pivotal part of growing up, of like, realizing that the Earth existed, and it wasn't just Batman and the Joker and my parents, you know? I did legitimately think Batman was real when I was a kid. I hope you guys don't think that's a joke. Like, I fully, if you asked me until like 8, I would have been like, Batman is a guy out there, and I don't have to worry about crime, because if somebody tries to rob my house tonight, he'll be here. Like, that's totally what I believed. Until I was, until last year. No, I'm joking. But like, there's something, it's almost like if existentialism is realizing there's a whole universe out there, and Earth is a tiny little blip in it, and we're a bunch of tiny little blips on Earth, I feel like sonder is almost like a form of existentialism in a feeling where you realize, like, the world itself, there's so much going on just around you, you know? It doesn't even need to be on this scale of the world at large. It's already so big if you just look around to, like, your town, you know, no matter how small. Whether you are in a town with millions of people or just like 1,000 people, that's still so many people in comparison to you. You're just one dude, you know? And it's interesting, right? Because like existentialism, as much as it's the name of like a philosophy and a philosophical movement and all that stuff, it's also like an emotion we are able to feel, right? Like an existential dread is not a new thing, I don't think. I feel like it's like on the rise though, to be honest. I feel like existential dread is kind of like bigger now than it ever was before, and somebody should definitely look into that, because that's something I've been feeling. But sonder is almost like a smaller form of that. Like if bliss is an extreme amount of happiness, and like happiness is the smaller version of bliss, the more contained version of it, it almost feels like sonder is the much smaller version of existentialism. And I actually don't think it's a coincidence on a personal level. Maybe this is a bit self-aggrandizing. Maybe I'm trying to make my life more of a narrative to make it make sense to myself. But I do think it's not a coincidence that like that's like my first memory as a kid And to this day, existentialism as a philosophy speaks to me so much. Like, I don't think that's a coincidence. I think it's almost like maybe, I guess it's sort of a chicken and the egg situation, right? Is it that I have this philosophy appeal to me now because I had that emotion as a kid, and like for years of my life was always kind of wondering, what was that, Or is it a predisposition, Is it the nature side of things, where it's like it was just in my nature that realizing that I'm small is like going to come out eventually. Maybe it's a human thing, I think like if you look throughout history, humans always think like we're like the biggest thing in the moment, and I think like always next to that, like I think it's like, speaking as a guy in a cube painting with no sociology expertise in any direction anywhere, right? And I'll never have any, right? Speaking as me, I feel like humans are so bipolar. Like, this is something I've thought about, where it's like we have this tendency to be like we are the biggest, we're the, like every era is the modern era. Like it's always like we're thinking about right now, how is this going to be the biggest? Everyone wants to be something bigger than themselves, which is great. I love it. I'm not saying this is like I'm not dissing humanity in any regard here. But along with that, I think we also have these moments where it's like we get brought down to earth a little bit, For me, every funeral I've ever gone to is like a deeply existential experience, because it's like, man, like that could be me tomorrow, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get so deep here today. I really didn't come with this intention, but I guess it's not an existential experience though to go to a funeral. That's not the right word. I think it's humbling, I suppose, right? Just that idea of like this is happening, like it's a reminder of how like this is the inevitable. And I think going to funerals is bad. Nobody ever wants to, but I think it's a good thing that we get reminded of this. You know what I mean? Because I think with humans being predisposed to such ideas of grandeur that are awesome. I'm sure that's how we built the pyramids, you know what I mean? Some human really early on had to be crazy enough to go like, no, we got that. Like, see those rocks? We're gonna stack them. Like that's crazy, like I think that's awesome. But at the same time, I think we need these moments of like coming back down to earth, and I think existentialism is almost a reaction to that. Like there's this, I don't know if I think it's a scholar is what he'd be referred to as. I forget his name now, but he said in this one interview where he was like, these ideas of like freedom and liberty and like we're gonna fight oppression have always been around, and then when you get to like the Enlightenment, that's when they're able to put words to them, right? And I would almost say like the same thing for existentialism of like, I feel like this impulse within humans to be like, oh, but we're so small at the end of the day, has always been around, like almost that degree of bipolarity. Like I think it's always been within us. Existentialism is just we were finally able to nail it down, So I do think sonder is the first form of that. Yeah. These are some buildings. They're red. If you guys have been here for a minute now, we've been doing a lot of red sort of architecture type stuff. I think it's really cool. It's from a series of novels I've been writing since I was a kid called, tentatively called, I suppose, A Tale from the Edge. And this is the architecture of one of the big governments in the novel. In my head, I've dubbed it the Centro architectural style. I, in many of these episodes, have not given it a title because I think it's a little bit, I don't know, I didn't feel like explaining it. I don't know, I thought it'd come off as weird. I won't be referring to it as that again. I think it's sort of this weird, almost brutalist thing. But, I don't know, I've been doing a lot of these, and I'll probably do a couple more, because I've had this style in my head for so long, and it's something where the sort of stony, washed out nature of it, like I want it to be a little rugged, and I can't get that ruggedness to work with markers or with sketching, and I'm not good enough. Colored pencils would probably be my best bet, or maybe a mixed medium with markers and colored pencils, but I'm not good enough with those mediums to do it. And I feel like I'm finally just good enough at painting to render them. So I think I'm going a little render happy, perhaps. I've done a lot of them, but I think it's cool. I really do like these. I think this is like my favorite little streak I've had so far. My little arc, I guess, I got going on here. I want to do that more. I want to have many collections. Like 365 paintings is fucking a lot of paintings, right? And within that, I do want to have little collections almost of like, oh, you know, Paint&Talk's 105 to 115, it was sort of this thing going on. Like, I think that's cool. So I do want to do that. I guess this would be the first real one. I did a bunch of eyes for a minute, but you know, that was what, 4 paintings in a row, and they were all trash. So I guess the red buildings, I'll dub them, will be the first real series. So yeah, topic ended a little early, so I got to explain the painting. This is it. I think it's cool. I really do like the look of these buildings. So yeah, let me know what you guys think about that. Today's topic was much less focused than most are, to be honest. I just saw my friend's film background, and it really made me think about when I was a kid, and I was like, huh, maybe somebody would like me to talk about that, or not. And we'll see in the comments below. So go check this painting out over on Instagram. Until next time, guys, gals, and pals, my name is Max Tice. This has been Paint and Talk episode 111. I'm here every morning, painting and talking with you all.